course, it starts out facing the other way. Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. This is my first vertical live. Had to get that all set up. Welcome back to Cosmic Awakening. Today on this live, we are going to be discussing meditation techniques. These techniques are going to be really useful to you as you start your spiritual practice, your meditation practice. If you struggle with meditation, these techniques will really help you out. If you tend to be the kind of person who gets distracted easily, these will really help. And even if you're more advanced, I think you'll get something out of this as well, because it's just a good idea to kind of like change it up sometimes. So this will give you kind of like fresh new ways to approach meditation, because there are so many different ways to do it. So let's get right into it. And feel free to put questions in the chat there, and we'll do questions at the end there. I'm going to pull up my chat here. It'll come up. Because I need to be able to see your questions. There we go. Okay. Gotta pull myself up here. Oh, I have to sign into chat. Oh, forgot about that. Okay, well, we'll just go without that then. All right, so welcome to live. All right, so let's get going here. So first technique here is to focus on one particular sound. So I like to use, if I'm using this technique, I like to focus on just one sound in the room or the space that I'm in. And that can be a fan, it can be your air conditioning unit. I like to use water sounds a lot because it's a very consistent sound, but there's also a lot of variation to it that your brain can find stimulating. So it's interesting enough to kind of like keep it going in the background, and tends to help with keeping the racing thoughts away. So I like to just kind of sit quietly and just kind of listen for that sound, that one sound that I'm focusing on. And I'll just try to find all the different ways that sound is interesting, which may sound really boring at first, but the idea is to kind of just calm the mind and make it as much of a blank slate as possible. And you just kind of focus on that sound and look for all of the ways that sound is interesting, and just kind of like describe it in your mind. So I like to do the water sounds, of course, and you're just focusing on the quality, all the different characteristics of that sound. And if thoughts pop into your head, just calmly acknowledge them without any judgment, and just kind of let them go, and just redirect your focus to, oh, what was that sound that I was focusing on? There it is, right there. Cool, let's focus on that. And you just kind of keep doing that, and over time, it will get easier to do for you. All right. And let's see, another technique here that I like to do. I actually made this up. I actually made this game up. So I play a game with myself about breathing. So this is integrating breathing techniques now. And I make it a game. I like to see how much I can slow down my breathing. And I like to see how many breaths do I take per minute. And so I will just literally set a timer on my phone for 1 minute, and I'll calm my breathing, and I'll take as slow of a breath as I can, slow of an inhale as possible, and hold it for as long as I can at the top of that inhale, and then slowly let that out. And the first time I did that, I was actually very impressed with myself, and I managed to get halfway through the third breath when my timer went off. So that was about 2.25 breaths in a single minute, and I actually looked it up later, and it turned out that 3 breaths per minute is considered like ideal for a resting breathing. So that's really good. So shoot for 3 breaths. Typical breathing that we do is like between like 14 and 16 breaths per minute when we're just going about our daily lives. But resting, we definitely want that to slow down. So just do it as slow as you can. Obviously, if you have health conditions, this might be a little bit more difficult for you, but just slowing that down, even if it's just, you know, a little bit slower than your typical breathing pattern, you're going to reap a lot of benefits from that. So that's a really good meditation technique, simply because you are you're just focusing on breathing, and it gives your brain something to focus on, and you're just kind of like focusing on your body too. So you're focusing on what your body's doing, and when you breathe in, you want your belly to go out a little bit, because you want to breathe from way down here, because then so like a singer's breath, and you'll be able to hold in more air for longer if you do that instead of breathing from way up here. So that's a little game I like to play with myself, and it's great because you're just competing with yourself basically, and just seeing like how few breaths you can get in 1 minute. So palm stones are really great. So any kind of silent fidget is really good. If you're the person who tends to fidget or has trouble sitting still and you move around a lot, then this is really good for you. So like palm stones, which are literally like the size of your palm, are good to hold there, and you can kind of just rub it and feel the texture of it. One in each hand, or you could just do one. Is really good to kind of just keep your hands busy. That's really good for that, and then it tends to be easier to calm the mind from there. If you're someone like me who has beads like this isn't necessarily silent, but it at least gives your hands something to do. So these are prayer beads, and you can, this actually is a really, really good fidget right here. You're not necessarily going to be doing that number there, but like holding the beads themselves, like the round parts right here. And if you like to do mantras, then you can definitely integrate this really easily with different mantras that you can do. And there's lots of different mantras you can look up online, and if you work with a deity, then there are specific mantras that you can do for that deity, and then just kind of focus on the mantra, and then that right there is what your mind is focused on. You're just focused on doing the mantra in your head, or you're saying it out loud, and you're just going all the way around, and the beads kind of keep count of how many mantras you've done. And then once you get to the end, that's like 1 round, and some people go for longer. This is 108 beads right here, so this is a typical 108 bead prayer malas for that. So I typically do 108 and then call it quits there, but some people go for several rounds. So however you want to integrate that. But yeah, having a fidget is really handy for meditating. So just kind of, you know, watch this video and see what techniques resonate with you in the moment, because obviously not all of these will kind of work for you in this moment, but just pick what works right now and then just go from there, and you might be able to try some other techniques down the road. Okay, so sticking with kind of more physical meditations, there's also walking meditations that you can do. So if you don't like really sitting still for long periods of time, if that doesn't really vibe with you, then there's a walking meditation. Walking in nature is ideal, but you can really do this anywhere, and focus on your senses. So like typical example would be, you know, walking in the woods. So what do you see? Describe it in your head. What do you hear? If there's birds, see if you can identify the birds by their calls. and just kind of immerse yourself completely in that environment. And you're not thinking about your racing thoughts, you're just kind of externalizing it and just focusing on, okay, what is all around me, and describe it. What are the sights, what are the sounds, what are the textures? What do you smell? What does the smell remind you of? Smell is very closely connected to long-term memory, so what does that remind you of? So just immerse yourself in the experience of your surroundings, and that is a really good walking meditation. And then you have the added benefit of walking in nature as well, and you're going to get all of those benefits. So just anywhere you can take a relaxing walk is good for that. Any other physical activity is good too. There's many people who get to a calm, kind of that blissful flow state just by doing any kind of physical activity, whether it's running, whether it's swimming, or just walking. That's a really good physical meditation. Yoga, of course, is huge whenever it's connected to meditation, because you're focusing more on your body there, and you may be integrating other things with it, but just to keep it simple, you can just focus on the stretches themselves. Yoga and stretching, if you're the kind of person who tends to give yourself like negative self-talk, just catch yourself doing that, and watch for that, and speak kindly to yourself as you're doing this. Like, you don't have to do it perfectly. Don't worry about like what you think is, the ideal way to do it. Just do the best you can, because your best is enough. All right, and okay, and then there's mind prompts. So I really like this kind of technique. I've done this a lot myself. So this is sort of like journaling prompts, but you're doing it in your head. So you can just sit or lay down comfortably, whatever is comfortable for you, and you give yourself prompts. The prompts I like to do are, what does my higher self have to tell me today? Talking to your higher self. And you just kind of sit there and just, send that out there. Like, what does my higher self have to tell me today? And just wait for a response, and you will get a response. You can do the same thing with your spirit guides. What do my guides have to tell me today? Get to know your guides. You can ask them their names, and just kind of go through each one. I believe we all have a squad of 9 to 12 spirit guides, so interview them. Ask who's around, Ask their names. What do they help you with? And just kind of give them like a little interview, and be curious. Just ask any questions that pop up into your mind, and so that kind of gives the mind something to do, and but it's also very, very meditative, and the information you get back is very useful. If you're in kind of a self-improvement mood, you can kind of ask yourself, what do I need to work on? And see what pops into your head. And if something does come up, just acknowledge it without any judgment, and send it love and peace. You can ask your guides, how can I resolve this issue in the healthiest way? That's a really good question to ask if you've become aware of an issue or a problem in your life that you need to work on. Then just ask your guides, how can I resolve this in the healthiest way? And just be open and receptive to any advice that you get. So this may take some time, so just be patient with yourself and just take your time. And once you start doing this kind of more regularly, you will want to get into that state more often, because it truly is like a blissful state. One that's really good is if you're focusing like less on the self-improvement side of things and more just kind of getting into a calm, blissful state, I like to just sit with some relaxing music, maybe some sound bowls or chimes and things like that, and just sit nice and comfortably and quietly. Sometimes I'll have a palm stone in my hand just so that my hands have something to do. And I'll go into what I like to call the void or the cosmos. And it's just kind of that empty blackness, and it's that field. It's the unified field where all things spring from. So it's kind of like the void of all creation, where everything comes from. And you're just kind of like diving deep into that void, and I just kind of pretend that I'm just kind of swimming or flying through space, you know, kind of thing. And from there, it's just overall a feeling. You're swimming through that blackness, but it just feels so comforting, and it's velvety, and you just kind of feel comforted and held from all sides from there, and just that feeling of oneness, that feeling of interconnectedness with everyone and everything in the universe, and just kind of focusing on that and amplifying that in your mind, and just surrendering to that feeling, and have an experience from there. And sometimes you might run into your guides there, or some light beings or something. Everyone's experience is totally different, but that's kind of like where I start from, where, you know, if I go down deep and I'm focusing on the music, then I just kind of just go into that space and just see where it takes me from there. And then once I'm there, it's like, it's wonderful. And then you're kind of just in that blissful, yummy state, and you just want to stay there for as long as possible. And you'll come out of it, and you know, an hour or two has passed, and it'll only have felt like 30 minutes or something, and it'll be a ride like you've never had before. So once you start doing this, you'll want to do it more often, because it's just a beautiful, peaceful place where there's nothing to worry about. You don't have to worry about, you know, your to-do list or racing thoughts in your head. So so it's definitely worth like trying some of these techniques, because whatever gets you to that peaceful, blissful state, do that as much as you can. All right. Let me see. Just one note about kind of like racing thoughts. If random thoughts kind of pop up into your head, just acknowledge them. I've had them described to me as like clouds, like watching clouds go by. You can kind of just acknowledge them without any judgment, and just let them go by, and let them go. You thank them, you know, when they pop up, thank them. Be like, thank you for your time, and just let them go gently. If you went down a train of thought without realizing that you went down a train of thought, like you kind of, a thought popped up into your head and it kind of, you know, took you with it. And as soon as you realize that that has happened, and you've kind of gone down a train of thought, and you've started worrying again, or whatever it is, as soon as you realize that, jump off the train. I like to call that jumping trains. And then come back to your center, or the thing that you were focusing on, like the sound of the fan in the room or the water, and be like, oh, I went down a train of thought. Okay, thank you, bye-bye. What was that sound I was focusing on? There it is. Okay, let's focus on that now. And you just keep doing that, you know. So, you know, if that happens a lot, then this is all about training your brain. So you'll get into the habit of doing that, and it's just repetition. It's just practice. That's why it's called a meditation practice, because it takes practice. And then over time, it'll get easier, and you won't have to do that as often. So this is how you discipline your mind. It's gentle. It's not harsh. It's gentle little nudges. It's just nudging your brain, nudging your mind here and there. You're just gently guiding it. Be like, no, we're not going to focus on those thoughts. We're going to focus on the here and now, the present moment. And as I said, as you practice this, it will get easier. So, all right. Well, if you guys have any questions, I am ready to take those now. Let me see here. Any chat? Okay, good. I can't see the chat here. Beautiful hand gestures. Hi, Eric. Thank you. I can see the chat now. Lovely nails and rings. Well, thank you. I have more. I'm just not wearing them today. But these are kind of the ones that I always wear. I've got a pentacle on this one that my dad gave me, and my ruby wedding ring. Let's see. Okay, Aaron says, I don't think this is wrong. I pick up on small things in the music I listen to and try to see if there's a pattern. Yeah, absolutely. Just find anything that's interesting in the music. I recommend music without words, because words, carry a lot of thoughts with them, and then you'll go down a train of thought, and we want to avoid that. So yeah, just any kind of music that doesn't have words, instrumentals, singing bowls, waterfall sounds, creek sounds, anything that will get you kind of relaxed. Some people use ASMR too. That's another one I wanted to touch on is I used to listen to ASMR a lot, and depending on like the trigger that you're listening to, as long as it relaxes you, whether it's tapping or like crinkle sounds and stuff like that, that tends to induce a feeling of relaxation. So so ASMR works great too. I just recommend the ASMR triggers that don't involve like vocal sounds or words. So great. Yeah, thanks for joining the chat, guys. Yeah, if you have any questions about meditation or any type of aspect of spiritual practices, I'm here to answer it. So we'll just hang out for a couple more minutes just to see if anybody has any questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Let me go back to my notes here. Let's see. But yeah, if you're the type of person who tends to get distracted, then it definitely helps to give the brain something to focus on. And so that's kind of what these techniques were geared towards. So so just to kind of review here, you can pick a sound, pick a sound in the room, fan, air conditioning, water, and just focus all your attention on that sound and pick out all of the interesting characteristics, all the different characteristics about that sound. And I used that technique for years actually, and that worked very well for kind of keeping the racing thoughts away. There's the mind prompts, giving your head kind of like an assignment, and it's like, what does my higher self have to tell me today? What do my spirit guides have to tell me today? What do I need to work on? And just kind of doing these little like journaling prompts, but doing them in your head. So that's really great. And slowing down your breathing, making it a game, like see how many breaths you can fit in 1 minute, how few breaths you can fit in 1 minute. 3 breaths per minute is ideal. Resting breathing. Holding a palm stone, holding a fidget, a silent fidget ideally, so that your mind doesn't get distracted by the sound of the fidget. Palm stones are really great for that because they're very smooth and you can kind of move them around in your hands. Even like those spheres, those kind of like meditation balls are really good too. See, walking meditation, any kind of physical meditation is really good. Physical activity, swimming, running, walking, especially in nature, is going to be very beneficial. The yoga is huge. I'm probably going to do a whole series on yoga because you're focusing more on your body, and I find that anytime that I do yoga, I'm focusing more on the stretches themselves and just focusing on like the specific position of my body in that. All right. And then again, if random thoughts pop up, acknowledge them, thank them, and then just send them off with love and peace. All right. I think we're going to call it quits for today, but thank you so much for joining me, guys, and stay stay awesome, and you'll get another video 2 Saturdays from now. All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Have a great day.